Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Question Block. I just got done going through the comments. I'm very excited for this episode because there's a lot of great comments that I feel like I can really explain pretty well, and we're just gonna jump right into it. Um, Cedric Kamga, a frequent commenter on the channel, asked about talking about Clan Boss. I hear the expression "affinity friendly" a lot. Can you please explain what it means? So, I'm gonna I'm gonna give I'm going to give this answer in a way that I feel will be able to help everybody understand. So I'm going to give kind of the basic answer, but then also go into more detail about what I mean related to Clan Boss. So, um, Magic Affinity does more damage to um, Spirit Affinity, but takes more damage from Force Affinity. Also, they do weak hits against Force Affinity, and then it rotates in a circle, right? So Spirit does more damage to Force, but can take more damage from Magic and weak hit against Magic. Okay, so that's basically how that works. That's what affinities is. I realize you're not asking what affinities are. You understand what affinities are, I would assume. But I wanted to make sure that everybody understands that very basic premise of the game, because not everyone does, right? And as we always say on the channel, you don't know what you don't know. So I want to make sure people stay informed. So as far as how does it relate to Clan Boss? Clan Boss changes affinities at 50%. So you'll see right here on hard, he's over 100%, but here at 45%, he changed to Force Affinity. On Nightmare, it changed to Magic, and on Ultra Nightmare, it also changed to Magic Affinity. On Easy, it changed to Force Affinity. And so affinity friendly means a team that can function regardless of what affinity the boss is. Now, a couple things happen when the boss changes affinities. His abilities also change. I don't. Do they give me a breakdown of the affinities? Yeah, 50% changes affinities. Do they tell me? Because he gains different abilities at different affinities. I know that on Spirit, he does a slow. The reason I know this is because Spirit Affinity is one of the most frustrating ones to deal with in terms of building an unkillable team, because unkillable needs to work in very specific fashion relating to speeds, and if those speeds get changed for any reason, it can cause your team to wipe. Um, that's one of the great things about Eris, and you'll see Eris is in my unkillable team right here. This is on Ultra Nightmare. Because Eris has a cleanse at the beginning of her turn. Is it beginning of her turn or on her ability? Let's pull her up real quick. That's my main account, by the way. While I'm pulling this up, I want to address something real quick because people keep on saying things that are like mildly offensive. And I say mildly because it's not something that I'm going to make a video about or anything like that. But people seem to think I'm new to the game. This account is new. I've been playing this game for a pretty long time. Um, and I have a main account that is highly successful. I've cleared pretty much every piece of content except for Tag Team Arena, um, and some of like the newer dungeons like the Shogun and Sand Devil, but I just don't care about those. I'm in hard dungeons and all of it. I'm doing the highest difficulty levels except for Spirit Affinity, which I've done it, but I don't farm it at that level of um Iron Twins. Like I maybe I stumbled into it. I'm not gonna like toot my own horn. I don't know a lot about this game because I don't know what I don't know. And I'm happy to feedback, but it's like someone said in the comments like, "Well, you're new to the game, so," and I'm like, I hope maybe you know what maybe he meant my account's new. I'm gonna assume that, but I was like, do I give off the vibe that I'm new to this game? Okay. Anyways, um, Okay, so it's an ability that's on a 3 turn cooldown. It's not a passive like Doom Priest. Okay. Regardless, because it's only on a 3 turn cooldown, and if you build her very fast, which I do on my main account, she'll use this ability often enough that will cleanse my team of any debuffs, which include both the stun that the boss puts out there and the speed reduction that comes from the spirit affinity. And that keeps my speed tune working. Um, so that's a big part of it. It also the changing of the affinity of clan boss can affect who clan boss targets with the stun. Um, there's so many different factors that play a role in clan boss. So when we say affinity friendly, it means that this team will find success regardless of the affinity um, that clan boss changes to. And so on my team on this account, we would struggle the most with magic affinity. So the reason being, if we look at my team, or not magic affinity, yeah. So so this team is really it's kind of weird how the team is set up. So if we fight a force affinity team, Kale and Coffin Smasher are weaker. If we fight a magic affinity team, Sun Wukong and Deacon are weaker. Um or yeah, so Spirit Affinity is okay for us. Magic Affinity is okay for us. Um, or Spirit the weakest. My brain isn't working very well. I've had a very difficult day, but um, either way, my point is that I do less damage against certain affinities from time to time. It mainly depends on with Sun Wukong being my biggest damage dealer. I got my brain came back. It turned back on. Um, so magic affinity is usually pretty weak for me because I can't get big hits because I don't have a force champion on the team. Um, my magic damage dealers will be fine against magic affinity, but my spirit damage dealers don't do anything against magic affinity, and then there's no extra bonus from anywhere else on my team. Where if we go up against um, a force affinity, the spirits do good. Um, the spirits do extra good, while the magic um, doesn't do good. And if we go up against spirit affinity, the magic do good, while the spirit do normal. Um, or no, 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 yeah, yeah. Um, but on magic affinity, these guys do worse, and these guys just do normal. So, um, I kind of have like talked myself in a circle here and have completely screwed up what I was thinking. But the point is, let's get back to your question. How's that? Just ignore everything I said in the last 30 seconds. Um, the main takeaway here is that it's when we say affinity friendly, we're just saying that this team can succeed against any affinity. So right now, we've tested, I can still 4 key against any affinity that the clan boss may change to. Now it's usually more beneficial for me to get a key or two in while the clan boss is still on void, because once it changes affinity, it reduces my damage. So for instance, if I didn't start until halfway through the day and it was at 50% or lower and it was on one of my weaker affinities, um, where I can't really hit them that hard, and I get hit harder, right? Then there's a potential that I won't be able to 4 key because I may only do 8 million to 9 million damage a key, which wouldn't be enough to get that 40 million minimum, right? So, right now where we're at, affinity has not been a problem. So that's what I've meant. Let's move on. I think I did enough to answer that question, and I don't want to take too long today. All right. Peckham Halder says, "Hi, I'm using Artak, UDK, Thanasil, Zavia, Ronda as my clan boss team. I want to push for Nightmare. I got Jarek recently. I'm wondering if he can be fit into my team anyway. If no, what type of hero should I focus on to make my survival longer? Jarek is a great champion to get some longevity out of your clan boss team. Now, me personally, I use a Ursula who brings me tankiness with increased defense and strengthen, as well as a revive. Um, Jareg would bring uh, Ally Protect, which does a great deal of work in reducing the damage that your team would take, while also, I think, dishing out a decent amount of damage themselves, which is always good. Um, Now, I haven't looked at the roster here enough, and I don't have enough information. First of all, I'm going to look up who Thanasil is because I don't know them off the top of my head. You are a healer and an increased defense. So, based on the roster that you're giving me and their builds, there's a lot of information that I don't have. Artak is great for Clan Boss. UDK is bringing you some survivability, but also bringing you healing, which is important for what we're about to talk about. Um, I know Zavia is a poison master, which means great damage for Clan Boss, and I don't know what your Ronda is built for, and what kind of masteries you're using, but based roughly at what I'm looking at, I would probably say Thanasil could get replaced. Um, with Jareg, and you'd be able to get some more survivability and just go off the shields and healing of UDK to stay alive. Um, because I don't know really how everyone else is built, but that Ally Protect, the main thing that if once you bring in Ally Protect, you also need to make sure that you're oh boy, that you're keeping um keeping it up. You need Ally Protect to be up before theoretically before the boss would attack. Um, you might be able to, I don't know. So that's where speed tuning comes in. I'll be honest, I'm a little weak in this area because I haven't done any speed tuning around a uh ally protect team before. I've always done unkillable teams, which are and I did one with Demitha and Fushan, which is arguably a pretty easy unkillable team to make. So I've never really had to like face a big challenge, but for me and the way I think about it, that ally protect is going to give you survivability, and maybe a little bit more survivability than what Thanasil is necessarily bringing, just based on a rough look at their kit here. Um, they bring increased defense and a heal. This is good. And it's also of this champion's max HP. So if you build them in high HP, it's a big heal. This is a good heal plus the increased defense. I mean, that's good. Also, decreasing enemy buffs is good too. This is a decent champion. Don't know much about them to be honest, but I can see the value in them, for sure. Um, However, your UDK is probably bringing enough healing for you as well. Um, Between the shields and his heal, And then you combine it with the Ally Protect. So I'll be honest, I don't 100% know. It's really hard for me to say, not knowing what's going on. But I do know that Ally Protect is a big way that in defeating clan boss outside of an unkillable team, it's usually an Ally Protect team. Sometimes using Guardian gear, things like that. That's where you would get your healing from, so you wouldn't necessarily need to sacrifice another slot for a dedicated healer. Um, yeah, that's so. I do think Jareg needs to be in your clan boss team. Not 100% sure where they should go. I would look into Deadwood Jedi's site and see he may have a better explanation of Ally Protect. If I was to get an Ally Protect team, it would definitely work or character. It would work its way into my own team to try and get me to more keys in or longer turns for my keys in Nightmare, and hopefully maybe even into Ultra Nightmare. So I hope that answers your question. I would work on Jared, get him built, and then while you're building him, research how to better implement an ally protector because I just don't have that experience yet. I'm hoping that we get an ally protector champion on this account, and I can get to work on it. Icky Ray says, "Is there an easy way to calculate the balance between damage stat and crit damage for nukers, or a general rule of thumb for better damage?" This is gonna kind of tie into one of my next questions too, but um, I I'm probably gonna get ripped apart in the comments for this because the answer is probably yes, and there's probably some. My first guess would be a SAF video that breaks down how much attack you want per crit damage, um, for an attack based nuker and a defense based nuker and all of that. For me, my general rule of thumb is I want, if possible, to have a crit damage gauntlets on my champion, which means that I then have to make up for it with crit rate on usually every other item in on the character. Um, and then you would go crit damage on the necklace. And that usually gets me a decent amount of crit damage, a reasonable amount. And then any extra crit damage I can find along the way is helpful too. As far as boosting the main stat, so we're going to use an attack based champion as an example, putting attack percent chest on them um, is usually pretty significant. And then ideally, you would want to get as much attack percent on any other items that you can. So, real quick, let's take a look at my son Wukong. As far as as far as a direct answer to your question, is there a magic number between like for every 5 attacks you should have 1 crit damage or something like that? No, not there. Maybe there may be. I've not researched it and not seen it. I kind of just you asked a rule of thumb, so for me, as long as I'm putting on the right equipment, that's usually what I'm concerned with. So first and foremost is 100% crit rate. After you've found your 100% crit rate, then it's min-maxing your crit damage and your attack. Now, like I was saying, I would prefer, like on my main account, I have crit damage on my nukers, and then when I do that, I'm looking for crit rate on those gloves as well to help make it easier to hit the crit rate across the rest of the items. So you'll see I'm looking like here's 2 crit rate. Um, this is a good example. So this weapon, it has crit rate, it has the crit damage, but it doesn't have any attack percent on it. However, I feel okay with that because I'm running the attack percent chest, the attack ring, and in this case, I'm running an accuracy banner. But if you were going for full nukes, you'd probably be running an attack banner, depending on There's a lot. That's not always universal, right? There's a lot of reasons that you would run accuracy as well. Um, so and just as easily, like you'll see, I have attack on these gloves, right? Um, I've got so you can't get attack on the shield. Likewise, you can't get defense on the weapon. But so one thing that I like to do when I'm looking for a piece of gear, okay? So what substats do I want on this piece of gear? Let's assume we're looking for a new piece for Sun Wukong, and that's all. I'm not going to go into we're not getting into too many specifics. So what is a perfect piece for Sun Wukong? We would want crit rate, we would want crit damage, we would want attack, and we would want speed. So both of these I would consider perfect pieces for Sun Wukong. So then I would filter it further and say, well, I don't want a 4-star piece because I'm not going to get as much base attack on that weapon. And I get lower percent stats too. You'll see, like, here we got the one roll in attack, it was 10%. Here we get one roll in attack, it's 7%. So you get the better stats out of the weapon. Um, but then let's say that none of these pieces showed up when we did that. So now mentally I say, okay, well, what am I willing to sacrifice here? Well, I don't mind a piece slow because I have turn meter boosting champions. So maybe I drop the speed and see what else I get. Now in this case, I don't get anything else. Um, yeah, it's got more attack. I was just curious as to why. Um, and it's like, okay, well, I'm 10% short on crit rate right now. So I'm willing to give up some attack for some extra crit rate. Oh, okay, here we go. Now we've got some extra crit rate and crit damage. We've got, oh, here we go. We've got some crit rate, crit damage. This one's got speed on it, which is nice. You kind of have to like work your way backwards. So you would look for a perfect piece first and then kind of work your way back and take the best that you can get. I don't necessarily think that there's some magic number or magic rule, in my opinion, but there could be. There may be a content creator out there that's done the math and said, you know what, this is the kind of stats that you want to look for. Um, for me, I'm usually looking to get as much crit damage as I can with attack in the places that I can get, attack or defense or HP in the places that I can get, and then any extra anywhere else is a bonus. I wish I could show you. I don't want to log over to my other account right now, but for one of these question blocks, I'll definitely hop on my main account and show you guys kind of how the build is on a lot of my other champions. Um, One thing to consider too is if you want a champion that's super slow, you could build them with boots that are in their main stat. I have a Mortu Macabre who I want to be super slow because I want him to get hit. Because every time he gets hit, it gives him a chance to use this peril ability, which will one shot pretty much anybody. Um, and he's built with a ton of HP, but not really like I don't want him to do damage from his HP. He's built with HP because he's an HP champion, but also because he can tank. He'll survive longer. Um, but then I also have him in HP boots because I don't want him to be fast. I want him to be slow so he gets hit more and he'll get to use peril on his first turn and take out a powerful character. He's in stone skin, which keeps him alive through the first contact of the enemy waves. So, okay, let's move on. What was this one? Ah, I was really excited to answer this question. This is the whole reason I'm making this video. I almost didn't make this video today, but this particular question got me very, very intrigued. Um, So this was on episode 75. So on episode 75, in the comments section, somebody asked, I remember in a video, I can't remember which, it's Street 3700, saying defense caps out at 4200. So I did some research. I put a link in there uh, to a Reddit post about defense not capping out at 4200. Now the argument that I believe that they're making, and I could be misunderstanding what they're saying, but the reason it was theorized at 42 was a pseudo limit was related to Clan Boss in particular, meaning that you couldn't mitigate any more of his damage. Um, and it is explained in the Reddit post that that's kind of incorrect. Um, but why? Let's talk about why they're commenting this. They're commenting about the 4200 limit because I built out my UDK on this account to be 4700. On my main account, he's got 6000 defense. Um, and I wanted to address this for a couple of reasons. One, I put a link. Read the research of the other individual that I put down in that particular comment. To get a better understanding about defense and how mitigation works, how effective HP works. Um, and second, I wanted to point out that let's say there was a cap, and let's say it was 4200. That doesn't matter on an Ultimate Death Knight. And the reason that I say that is because Ultimate Death Knight gives a shield proportional to this champion's defense. So I don't care if I'm not mitigating damage. I want a big ass shield on my entire team. And so I'm going to put as much defense as I possibly can onto Ultimate Death Knight so that my team doesn't die. Right? So, um, and same thing with like Valkyrie, who does a similar mechanic. Her shield is proportional to defense. Um, who I used for a long time on my account. Um, value of the shield are proportional to this champion's defense. So I have her built out in really high defense. I've even seen people argue that you could build her because she has some turn meter built into her kit as under her passive. I've seen people put her in defense boots where she's slow but she gains turn meter because of buffs going out and therefore keeps up with everybody. Um, and then these are just champions off the top of my head because I have them and I use them. Mithrala has a similar effect, um, where the shield is based on her max HP. So you build her very high health. Um, so yeah, even if there was a defense cap, which the post explains how there kind of isn't, um, I would still build extremely high defense on my UDK. As for why UDK is getting smushed by uh, this particular team on Nightmare, he's not. He's affinity negative. There's a lot of spirit champions here that are just gonna crit him away, right? So um, it is what it is. I need to get better champions. I need to get maybe some more crowd control. You know, if void champions would be a big deal. I just maybe I go in there with Ursula and see if she's able to tank the those guys, and then let Sun Wukong do his thing. I just haven't experimented with it yet. Probably won't right now. I've spent a lot of my energy, so I'm kind of not in that like over 500 point anymore, and I have places I want to put my energy. But where are we at? So, oh, we're almost at 30 minutes. Okay, now the next one is gonna be the longest part. I'll try to keep it quick though, because I do want to shorten these up, and I've been teasing this one, so I can't skip it. All right, Street 3700 again says I'm 150. or so days into raid. I was extremely lucky to pull a Leorius the Proud, and sadly, I have been struggling to build him to his fullest potential. I've rebuilt him several times, but can't seem to keep him alive / do tons of damage like I've seen others do with him. I want to farm Savage Gear, but struggle because I don't have the champion to go Fire Knight. I was able to 100% auto Dragon 20 on auto, but I'm not sure if I should keep farming it or just hit Fire Knight at lower stages. I cleared out almost all my 4-star gear and really want only 5 or 6 now. Without being able to see my account in champions, what do you think I should do? All right. So let's look at Leorius the Proud real quick. Really, really strong champion. Very, very effective PvP nuker. Good nuker in general. So a couple of things in your post kind of give some stuff away. So you can't seem to keep him alive. Stop trying to. That's probably part of your problem. So Leorius has this really awesome passive effect. Instantly places an unkillable buff on this champion for 1 turn before receiving a fatal hit. Leorius is the bane of my existence. I use a Mortu Macabre team, as I've just referenced earlier. Mortu Macabre ignores block damage. He does not ignore unkillable. So whenever my Mortu Macabre goes up against a team, and I try to avoid it when I can, that has Leorius the Proud, I always lose. Because I will inevitably have to use my ability on Leorius, and when I do, he goes unkillable, and then he kills my whole team. He also increases his damage by 1% for each HP he loses. By percentage, too, which is important. So you don't need him to have, like, a whole bunch of HP. You can still have him with a little bit of HP, and it's just a percentage. If anything, that'll take him to 100% damage increase when he hits that unkillable wall. Now, that's if you're going with, like, a go second approach. The other thing, when I talk about keeping him alive, is build a go first team. So get the right support around him. So for me, on my team, let's look at Arena. So for my team, I'm using the speed boost that Sun Wukong brings me to 28% in arena battles. But my Deacon Armstrong is incredibly fast. And he goes first, followed by Ursula, who gives me he boosts my team and puts decreased defense on the enemy team. That increases the damage that my Sun Wukong can do. In this case, we're going to say Sun Wukong is the equivalent of your Leorius. They are apples and oranges. They are not the same, but just in a general sense here. So decreased defense means my Leorius will do more damage to the enemy team. Or my Sun Wukong will do more damage to the enemy team. Then I give myself increased attack from Ursula. That means I'm going to do more damage to the enemy team. Then my Sun Wukong goes. He removes buffs while doing damage. And then Kale follows up. My guess is that if you're concerned with keeping your Leorius alive, it's because you're not going first. That's okay with a Leorius. He's a good go second nuker because of his unkillable composition. However, if you're also losing the rest of the team around him, and your enemy team is completely buffed to like they have every buff imaginable, strengthen, decreased defense, block damage, all those things, then it limits your ability to get real value out of the Leorius. So my question, it's probably has a lot less to do with Savage Gear than you may think. What's her aura? I don't know what her aura is. It might be too fast. I think this team beats me all the time. Let's try this team. Let's just try this team and see what happens. I'm gonna take it off of auto. Put it back on auto, but I'm gonna make it go slow here and see what happens. So you see I go first. I decrease the defense of the enemy team. I steal all their buffs and do a ton of damage. And they had one turn, and I believe that was a counterattack more than anything else. So my as far as keeping him alive, my Sun Wukong never took any damage at all. Right? Um it's gonna bug me next time I go to play arena because I'm gonna forget and I'm gonna have to sit there and be like, why is this going so slow? All right, let's look back at Leorius again because he is attack based, right? I'm like pretty sure that he is. Yeah. So there's two different routes that I would recommend. One, get speed boots on them, even if they're 4-star. You want if you want to build him in a go first team, build him in a go first team, meaning that you get. I don't think you mentioned an arbiter or anything, but you want to get a champion that will make him go first. You want him to be 100% crit rate. That's priority number one. I would rather have a champion that is 100% crit rate than a champion that has really high crit damage or really high attack. I want them to have crit be 100% crit rate, priority number one. Priority number two is then crit damage, but you want to make sure you're getting your main stat from other areas. So I wouldn't want to put Sun Wukong in an HP chest, for instance. Now perhaps you could do that if you were getting damage elsewhere, but for me, it just makes sense to use an attack-based chest. Now there is the increased possibility that because he's in an attack-based chest that he may die, but if you're in a go first team, that doesn't matter. If he's in a go second team, then you're solely counting on your unkillable, which means that you need to avoid certain fights. Case in point, I'm sitting here looking at the team that I'm going to fight as a demonstration for this, and I'm avoiding certain teams that would cause a problem for the team that I have. This team right here, a bomb team. I don't have a cleanse. This bomb team could mess me up. We don't know. Let's find out. All right. So I still get the speed advantage, which is good, and I'm able to take them out. All right. So, but that was a scary team for me to go against. Lord Shazar has one of the best speed auras. They could have outspeeded me pretty easily. I got lucky that they didn't. Part of that is because I'm at gold 1. My team is not going to survive past gold 1. So I was able to win the speed battle this time. But I will tell you, I lost the speed battle here. I likely lose the speed battle here because they have a turn meter pusher here. So, you got to be mindful about the fights that you're taking on as well. The biggest problem that you're probably having right now is Sun Wukong. He's kind of a good counter to Leorius. If you're building your Leorius slow and Sun Wukong goes first, he's putting block buffs on your Leorius. Unkillable, the way that it works, when he is about to die, he casts Unkillable on himself, but if there's a block buffs, it doesn't go and he dies. Sun Wukong places a block buffs, therefore preventing you from potentially using Unkillable on yourself as Leorius. So if you are going to go up against a Sun Wukong team, you need to win the speed battle, or else, that's just not a team that you're going to win with that go second composition. And the counter to that is you could bring a reviver. A team that I run into all the time is a Cardinal in full stone skin gear with a squishy team around her. They all die. She revives them all, and then they kill me. And it's usually with a Leorius quite often because the revive doesn't give that much HP back to them. So then the Leorius, he gets a damage boost already. And she gives turn meter enough to them to take that turn. Um, and so, that's the kind of stuff that you want to be aware of and kind of working towards. So, um, you just need to do your best to kind of try and to mitigate things. So I would, if it were me, I would run Leorius in a speed team. I would build him uh, within the right percentage of my fastest champion. So what does that mean, percentage of? So if Deacon gives me a boost of 15%, I would want, well, this is a bad example because he also decreases the enemy, and I don't want to get like too complicated in math in that regard. But for my Arbiter, as a better example, just for me mentally to explain it, um, Arbiter gives me 30% turn meter. So I want my slowest champion to be within 30% of Arbiter and her speed. Um, because if they're at 29%, if they're within 29% of her speed, meaning that, like, so she gives 30%. So if she's at 100 speed and my DPS is at 69 speed and she increases all the allies by 30%, they're at 99 speed, but the enemy team may have somebody that's at 100 turn meter and they would go first. If I am within 30% speed of her, then she would give me that speed and then I would go right after the Arbiter. But because she's already in this scenario, for this to work, she has to be faster than the fastest person on the enemy team. Um, I might be poorly explaining this, but that's how it makes sense in my head. And it's been working for me. Um, but yeah, there's way more complicated math that is involved, and there's a whole slew of videos about turn meter and how turn meter actually works. But ideally, if your Arbiter is super, super fast and she goes first over the enemy team, then you would win that fight. If she's too slow, then it's a moot point. Um, but if you bring a champion that isn't within that speed threshold of Arbiter, it doesn't matter, right? So she gives my whole team 30%. My all my other champions go because they're within 30%, but that damage dealer isn't, then the other team goes and could potentially wipe my team off the map before that character gets their turn. So, I would use Leorius in a speed team. Um, uh, Personally, just because, like, considering what is on my account. I don't necessarily think I have what it takes to make a go second team. That being said, as I start to get more stone skin gear, I could theoretically build around Ursula um, a go second team, which I just kind of talked about, where I let the enemy team go, I survive their attacks, and then revive the team. But that team is still weak to Sun Wukong because he can steal the stone skin buff. So yeah, there's counters, there's all these kinds of ways around it, but you want to build your Leorius to be able to get advantage of his damage in a way that works with the rest of your team. So, if you have a whole bunch of revivers and you have a whole bunch of stone skin gear, I mean, you know, my team, my Mortu Macabre team is Mortu Macabre, Ultimate Death Knight, Rector Drath, and Pythion. It's 3 supports and Mortu Macabre. Now that even that team has its weaknesses because guess what I can't kill? I can't kill single target damage because they can't kill my Death Knight and therefore don't do any damage to Mortu Macabre. So he just keeps on whacking away with his attacks that don't hit as hard as Peril. He's not able to take down single target hitters. I have to make sure there's a AOE attacker in that. So what I usually do is I look for an Arbiter, because Arbiter has an AOE attack that most people don't turn off in their defense. So they use that, and then that charges up my Mortu Macabre. But there are some times where I have done it on auto, and Mortu killed every single member of the team except for like the single attacker, like a Siphi, for example. And then I lose. I just have to stop. I have to quit because I will never be able to kill that Siphi without proccing Peril. So, um, so there's always things that you got to watch out for. But for me, based on your description and how many days or so you are in, I don't think it's a gear issue. I think it's a prioritization of gear. I think that make sure he's in a percent chest. You might want to make sure he's fast enough compared to the champions that you're using around him. Because Leorius is, I mean, if we were to have Leorius on this account, like we would have no problems. We would just be destroying this game. He'd help us in Spider. He would help us in PvP, of course. Probably the only place that we wouldn't gain value would be like Fire Knight and Ice Golem. But even on Ice Golem with Unkillable, I think he'd be able to survive quite a bit there. So I hope that answers your questions, guys. Thank you all for watching. I'm just going to go ahead and end it here. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for your patience with me today. I know this video is getting out late. I explained it in episode 176. I don't have time to explain it in this video, but love you guys. Super thankful for all the support that you've been giving. Thank you for checking out this channel. Thank you for your comments. I love talking about this stuff. It teaches me new stuff. I had never heard of a defense cap before, and I had never heard. And then obviously I learned today that there isn't necessarily one, right? And so I learned something new about the game. That's thanks to you guys and your comments. So keep them coming, and I'll see you all in the next one.